Yes, it is. Oh, lost you.
You got me now?
Yeah. Are we filming or just recording?
I'm filming as we talk. I'm also recording as well.
Okay. You got me. I don't see you.
I see you.
Okay,
Let me
cool.
see if I can get you to see me there, Bob.
That's all right.
All right. I wanted to ask you, how did Iron Allies come to be?
April of 2021, Herman sent me a message on Facebook and asked me if I'd be interested in seeing if we could write together. And of course, I said absolutely. And sent me 2 tracks. I think I wrote them in about 2 days and recorded them in 2 days. Sent them back, and he went, "Wow." Sent me 2 more. I recorded them, and he was like, "Yeah, this is good." So that's how it all began.
And this one is, I mean, top to bottom, absolute amazing album.
Thank you, brother. My quest is fight off the filler and try to keep the killer.
Right. I wanted to ask you, as far as this album is concerned, because it is so great. I mean, it literally is. I tried to pick a couple songs to talk about and say they're my 2 favorites, but I can't find 2 favorites. I love them all.
That's a good problem to have. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you, I have a fairly good idea of where I would place this album in your catalog. I wanted to ask you where you would place it.
Oh God, it's right up there as one of my all-time favorites. You know, from the beginning till now, I think, as you know, we talked about. I had a kind of a slap in the face by a real good friend that I need to go back to the heavier singing, because I spent a lot of time kind of doing the hard rock blues thing for a while, and it didn't work. So I released a few solo albums, and I gradually got heavier. And I think that's where my voice belongs. Although I do have, some soft stuff that I've written, but I think I can really put my boots into this one and display what I'm all about.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you, will you take this to the road?
Yeah. Confirmed couple festivals so far right now. Working on Canada and hopefully the United States as well. I've got some feelers out there. But yeah, obviously the European festivals, everything's in negotiation right now. I think there's 2 confirmations on the board so far. It's pretty tough, bro.
And I also want to ask you if you could speak on the album artwork and the artist that was involved in the project.
Well, that's a combination of Kai Swillis and a couple other guys at his company in Germany. The guys that did the videos, the 3 that are out. I absolutely love it. I mean, I think the IA and the shield, everything is pretty cool. And if you look really closely, something I didn't notice, and my brother actually brought it to my attention, there's a face behind the IA on the front of the album. I never saw it. I just realized weeks ago. My brother's like, "Dude, whose face is that?" And I'm like, "What face?" He goes, "You go and see it?" And I had to zoom in on it, and then I picked up the vinyl and looked at it. I said, "Oh my God, there's a face in the background." I don't know who it is.
I also wanted to ask you about the title track and the title of the album. What led to the decision for the title Blood In, Blood Out?
Well, first, to clear the air, I had no idea that it was a movie or that Exodus actually had an album called Blood In, Blood Out. I never knew that because I don't listen to Exodus. But the way it came about was that track in particular, I had a different title and lyric written for it and recorded it. And I had been watching a lot of prison gang documentaries, and, you get into prison, whatever race you are, you pretty much got to go with if you want to survive, and you swear a blood in and a blood out oath, And I was talking to Herman about it, and he just started singing blood in, blood out. And he goes, "That's much better, rewrite it." So I said, "Yeah, okay." So I basically, it's not about gang life. It's basically the DNA of rock and roll. It's a lifetime of service. You know what I mean? It's like being a Marine. Once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. rock and roll. And I'm sure you know that. I mean, it's our life, you know.
I also wanted to ask you, you've had such a long and great career. I wanted to ask you, one thing I think would be a problem is I wanted to ask you, do you ever have those moments when you're creating that you go, oh, fuck, I already did that before?
Not that I can recall right now. I mean, when I'm writing, sometimes without, just singing into the phone, if I have an idea, sometimes those are a little similar. But I really, I try to, well, maybe in, 10 years ago, I was getting a bit redundant, because all the melodies seem to be kind of the same, doing that White Snake-ish kind of hard rock thing. That's kind of hard not to be repetitive. But I really always wanted to maintain the vocal melodies, but sing heavier, in the last 5 or 6 years, actually. So I maintained that part of it, that I always do, but I wanted to put that power back into the vocal. No, if I do sense it, I just walk away from it. Usually my best time for writing is when I first wake up. I don't know what the word is, if you're lucid or whatever, the day hasn't attacked you with all the bullshit that happens.
Right.
And I feel more free in my head with coffee, and I just start writing. And then after about 10 o'clock, that's when the melee starts. So, musically, sometimes, when you're playing with guys, they'll write the same riff and you'll go, doesn't that sound like that song a little bit? And they're like, yeah, my vocal melody may be a little different. And they'll go, and we'll switch up a couple riffs, to keep it from being, samey. It's kind of hard to do, you got 12 notes in the scale. So,
sure.
You got to fight to try to make an impact.
I wanted to ask you personally also about your musical career, and when did you first get introduced to music, and what led you to the decision to become a vocalist?
What led me to what?
The decision to become a vocalist.
That began when I would sing as a kid with my grandmother. She always, remember those old consoles that had a vinyl player in it and a television and everything, and we listened to records all day. I grew up in Oklahoma as a boy, and we listened to old country music, and she was always playing records, so I learned them by heart, and I would sing with her. But then in my grade school years, I joined choir, and in those days I was probably what you would call a soprano before the voice changed. And the problem with that back in the mid 60s was you got beat up if you were in choir. You were considered a sissy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I started not showing up for choir practice, and my music teacher literally came to my mom's house and said, the kid can sing, he needs to apply it. And she said, well, he's tired of getting his ass kicked, I don't think he's going back. I went back and I performed the first time in front of people I did yesterday with her playing an acoustic guitar in front of about 200 kids at school, and I really felt it. But not soon after that, I started getting my ass kicked again, and I walked away. But the way the rock and roll life started, I was about 16. I had my own apartment with this guy, and he was a guitar player. And he was always at home with a bunch of chicks laying around the floor when I'd get home from double shift, making minimum wage. And, he was playing clubs, and I always hated his guts, because I was killing myself to live. And one day I was in the shower, and we used to have those old AM radios on the soap dish. And I think I was screaming along to Communication Breakdown. And he opened the shower curtain and goes, dude, you can sing. You want to join my band? And I said, sure. And that's how it started. We started playing honky tonks and beer parties. And from there, I just, went into larger bands around the Midwest area. And we played every night in those days, dude. 4 or 5 hours a night, drive 800 miles, play another night. It was crazy. But that's where you cut your teeth,
Sure. And I also wanted to ask you, going back to the album, I love the mix of the tracks on the album. How was the process in putting them tracks together? Was it a hard process?
Not at all. I got one of the greatest metal drummers in the world, Francesco Jovino. We cut the record at Horus Studios in Hanover. I mean, I demoed some stuff here around my area in Italy, vocal tracks just to get the ideas. But we went to Hanover, and they've done Halloween albums there, Lana Waves, a ton of hit records, and you just walk back in time. It was a real studio with a separate booth for vocals, guitars, drum room, and Francesco laid down. We've had 18 songs, I think. Yeah, something like that. And we picked our favorite 12. And those 12, Francesco had just recovered from a completely snapped wrist. He had broken both bones and his left hand a month prior. He'd fallen off a ladder. But that dude hammered through all 12 tracks, 3 different versions on drums in about 8 hours.
Wow.
I'm serious. And the engineer looked back at me while he was recording. He goes, Dave, I can hear fatigue in drummers usually after a couple hours. But this guy's snap has not let up in all of these sessions. And I said, yeah, he's the real deal. And then we got Malta on bass, and he's toured around Europe with me, and we've made quite a few albums together. So I knew he was the right bassist. And then you got Mike Peason, who's the rhythm guitar player, and he's for Herman, guys like Herman, it takes a special animal to be able to play with a guitar player like Herman. You've got to have your rhythm chops, you know what I mean? Otherwise it won't work. And especially just 2 guitar players in the same unit is always tough. So they have a real good chemistry together. But all in all, I'd say 2 weeks to record the record. And then our engineer was going to mix it, but he got sick. So we were kind of up against the wall, and I started fishing around. And I'd done a record with a band called Wicked Sensation. And Dennis Ward had mixed it. And I always liked Dennis's work. And he speaks fluent German, so I told Herman to call him. And he lives in Germany as well. American dude. And he went down and met with him, and they knocked it out in a couple of days.
Yeah, I think you and Herman are a great team as well, because Herman pushes hard. I mean, he really does.
He's very, he's stalwart in what he wants to do. I mean, we had, honestly, it's a kind of funny story. We were in the same band at different times in our lives, and we never personally met. I'd played festivals when he was on the bill, and I'd miss his gig, he'd miss mine, but he came down here to my house and we hung out. And I mean, within an hour, he put his finger on the table and said, dude, I'm a heavy metal guitar player. So if you're not heavy metal, this won't work. I love what you do on vocals, but I'm not going to go new metal. I'm not going to go thrash metal, power metal. I am a metal guitar player. I said, perfect. And we shook hands and said, let's keep going. So here we are with a great record out. And, now we're at the level of booking shows, and videos are out, fan page is up. The record company's really happy. So, it's been pretty quick if you think about it. And the relationship is strong. I mean, we butt heads, singers and guitar players are both insane kind of creatures. So, but we managed to get over the hump, so to speak.
Right. And you both are perfectionists as well. So regardless.
He's more than me. If I feel I got a good vocal take and the energy's there, maybe a few bad notes, I'll say, you know what, I can live with that. Don't auto-tune it. It's got attitude. It's rock and roll. But during the recording of the album, after he realized how great the band was, I think he went back in and re-recorded all his rhythm guitars and his solos. He wasn't happy. So I would give him the perfectionist, label. I mean, he knew this album had to be great, especially a guitar-driven album,
And speaking of that, I wanted to ask, I get the vibe that it's not a one and done. Can you confirm that this is not a one and done thing?
Absolutely. I mean, if the public, obviously, when you're in this world of trying to sell records, which is real tough, and things keep moving forward. Obviously, the goal is we probably got about 8 new songs written now that are laying around that we're going to look at for another album. We don't want to be in a project. We're getting up there in our years, and we want to be in a rock and roll band that tours. Because he and I come from the same cloth, I mean, we believe in playing as many days in a row as possible. we don't want to do the one-off weekends and go home. I mean, they're exhausting, the one-nighters. You know, when you get into the rhythm and you're trudging down the road and playing night after night, you know, you really get the oil in the machine. So it's a real band, yeah.
And I also wanted to ask you, as far as touring, do you feel your voice gets stronger as a tour progresses, or do you actually start to develop problems?
For me, it gets stronger. Usually I notice around the third day when I get my legs, um, because, you know, when you record the tracks, you know, when you get a little more seasoned and professional and knowing your voice, you know that if you're singing a song that's way out of your range and, you know, your throat hurts at the end of the night, you know, that's going to be a tough one to do live. So I try to keep everything in a reasonable key where I'm not singing in outer space. But typically on tour, I notice, you know, like the third day, I start getting my legs and I'm really feeling the songs. And then like the fourth day, might have kind of an off day, and then the fifth day it kicks in. And I think 99% of it's in your head, you know, what you tell yourself during the day. Can I do it? You know, but I seem to be all holding up pretty good. You know, I sleep good every night. I don't drink. I don't party. And I think that stretched out my life as a singer a few more years, because, you know, so many of the guys that sang great when they were younger can't sing at all now because they just keep going crazy, you know.
Sure.
I don't smoke. I mean, I try to take care of my instrument as best as possible, and, you know, but, you know, you got bad nights, and if you know what you're doing, you can kind of fake it till you make it.
Mm.
Unless it's an absolute blowout flu and you know you got laryngitis, you know, you're just a human being. You know, it's like blowing a knee if you're a football player. You know, you gotta rest it.
Sure, absolutely. I I also wanted to ask you, what do you feel were the most vocally challenging tracks on the album?
Uh, you know, I felt like all of them were pretty comfortable. I mean, Fear No Evil is pretty ballsy. Um, uh, they're all in my range capacity. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like I said earlier, I didn't want to go. You know, like there's this Joe Perry who did an interview not too long ago, and he was talking about when they write songs, Tyler and him, that, you know, Joe will look at him and say, Steve, that's way up there. You know, you're singing way out of your range. You got to do that live. You know, back off. Let's change the key. And, you know, Tyler's like, no, we got to give it everything. You know, Tyler does.
Yeah.
Hey man, you don't have to. You know, you don't have to scream so much. You know, blah blah blah. But for me, I just, you know, I got to look at the song, sing it around the house while I'm listening to the playback. And then when I go in the studio, it's usually after I try to get everything in, you know, 2 to 3 takes max, you know, without beating the song to death. You know what I mean? I'm an old school guy that way. You know, I want to do the song with real emotion, raw. And I like doubling all the vocals, you know, it gives it that kind of phase sound like the 70s metal did. You know, Deep Purple and that stuff, Bad Company. I like that old Iron Maiden, Judas Priest sound, you know.
I also wanted to ask you if you was to look in your compact disc player right now, what is the last album you listened to?
Today, it's going to blow your mind. I've been on a Tom Petty trip lately. And yesterday I was listening to Chris Christopherson. I know that sounds kind of non-metal, but I listened to it for the vocal, the lyrical content, to be
Mm.
honest. You know, saying more with less. I mean, Tom Petty's the king of that. You know, three words. He can say more with 3 words than most guys can say with 10. Won't
Sure.
back down. You know, I mean, it's just inspiring to me. And I was just listening to Paul Rodgers, one of his solo albums, right before I called you. He's my all-time hero. Guy's in his late 70s and he still sounds amazing.
Yes.
As for the new metal bands, I mean, my wife's a huge Shinedown fan. But, you know, I've been kind of listening to laid back stuff lately, you know, because my brains get bashed in when I listen to Iron Allies all day. And sometimes I just need a break just to sing. And, you know, I don't open up and start howling as powerful as possible. when I sing in the daytime because I try to sing every day. It's kind of like a car. When you start it, you got to warm it up. You know, you don't shove that gas pedal down and go all out. You just kind of feel the waters out. And if you listen to a few Greg Allman songs or something, you kind of get that soul feeling. And
Sure.
2 or 3 hours later, you go, nah, there's a vocal rehearsal, keeping the chops.
Sure. And good music is good music, no matter what genre.
Man. I've got no, I mean, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I mean, I love a lot of different styles and most of the bands you hear now are pretty much emulating what those guys did 40 years ago,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there's not many Ian Gillans around in the world, is there? I mean,
no.
Speed King and all the tunes. I mean, come on.
And as you spoke of Tom Petty doing a lot with 3 words, I always felt that David Gilmour was so underrated because he could play in 3 notes and just make you feel better than if he hammered out 12.
Unbelievable guitar player. What a brilliant guitarist. I mean, he actually did a record with Paul Rodgers. I think it was called The Law. And he had a bunch of different guitarists. And I think the track that with David Gilmour is my favorite on that record. I mean, if you listen to The Wall, when he plays that solo, he's doing it actually on a Les Paul, an old gold top that actually had a full gold body. And I read just recently that he sold all those guitars for charity. The Black Strat, the gold top, all of those songs that we've listened to with Pink Floyd and those brilliant pieces. I think he auctioned all that stuff off.
Wow.
He wanted to pass on that tradition, he said. I want some other kid to create something on this Strat that I did. You know what I mean? The way I felt. But Gilmour he's probably in my top favorite guitar players.
Yeah, just an amazing talent.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, is there a merch shop set up for our Iron Allies right now?
Well, Iron Allies fan club page is up on Facebook, but until we solidify enough dates to make it worthy, no. But you can pre-order the album at AFM, or you can go at all the outlets that sell physical or digital. But the logo on the cover is definitely going to be a t-shirt and a patch. We've already discussed that. It's kind of hard, to order up a bunch of merch. And economically, if we thought about it, people are struggling, dude. And, buying CDs and albums is not easy with disposable income. So they said we're going to do a full-on merch blitz once we book and we promote the whole tour on social media. And then the availability, that if you want to pre-order it or if you want to buy it at shows. I prefer to sell it at shows. I like talking to people and taking pictures and signing the stuff, Excuse me.
And I also wanted to ask you, will there be a vinyl edition?
There is. There's actually a limited white vinyl of it available at AFM, and there's black vinyl. The white vinyls was only 300 copies. I don't know how many of those are left, but there's more than that with black. And then, of course, the Digipack. And then, the Evil streaming model is available. But, yeah, there are vinyl copies available through AFM at their shop. If you want to go to their site, they're really honking on that. I think we're going to press them more when we run out.
Yeah, it's that's one thing that's great about the metal community is a lot of other genres are struggling with selling CDs, vinyl, etc. But metal fans have stayed pretty loyal. Metal fans will stick together.
Yeah. You know what's funny about vinyl to me? That's a product that was invented back in like 1942. And to think that you're going back that many years back to something that began with rock and roll, with Elvis and even Duke Ellington and, all those famous guys, Little Richard, RCA invented the vinyl basically. And now it's an entity that people are going back to. So it tells me how important vinyl is, to people. I mean, you get to read it, I like to see who produced the record. I like to read the liner notes. I like to hold it. Makes a nice wall hanging. Sounds good when the needle's crackling, I like the smell of the vinyl plastic. We have a basement. I mean, it's just mountains of vinyl, my wife and I, and we've collected, since our childhood, and it's precious to us. And I know metal fans are the same way. I mean, they're once a metalhead, always a metalhead, I think.
Absolutely. And I was talking to someone the other day. I was saying, the thing I miss most is the midnight sales. The new album would come out, and we were staying in line for hours to pick up that vinyl copy and take that shrink wrap off and
Yeah.
put it on.
And think about, the community. When you met people, when you were younger and buying vinyl, when you went to their apartment or their house, you went right to their vinyl collection. It kind of told you what kind of person they were,
Sure.
what their lifestyle was. And you could tell by what they were buying and listening to. They always had their metal collection, but next to that would be maybe a Neil Young album or something they got from their older brother or sister or their mom and dad. But you could get a pretty good inkling of what the person was all about just by the music that they collected. You remember the old wooden shelves that had like milk crates for separating the shelves, I mean, I had that on my wall. So yeah, you kind of got that. And then that would strike conversation, you'd have that in common. Like you said, a record ride at midnight, it's coming out, everybody lines up outside, and sadly, a lot of those stores are gone. And that camaraderie, partying out in front of the store and the doors open and go in and buy every copy you can find,
And lastly, I wanted to ask you if you could give a message to your fans. What would that message be?
Well, there's a few things I'd like to say. I mean, I know it's crunch time right now economically. This inflation thing is worldwide. I'm in Europe. It's hammering us as well. I know it's tough. And if you've bought the album or if you're planning on it, I truly appreciate it. If you're an artist out there and you're struggling, you're not alone. Even guys like you, brother, Robert, we're all in this together. I thank all of you. The only thing that's going to save the industry is to buy and to go to shows. And we can't let the bad guys win. I mean, music is our release, and we need that tribal, surrounding where we can all go throw our hands up. I mean, I just went to see Ellefson Soto in Milan, and I wanted to support Jeff and Dave and be part of the crowd. And I said, here we are, man. Here's the gang,
Mm-hmm.
And I miss it. We're booking shows. We'll see you live as soon as possible, and God willing, and hopefully, a new Iron Allies album will come out next year in October. But go to the shop at AFM, -records.de if you're interested in the vinyl. Go to David Reese official Facebook. Go to the Iron Allies fan club page. We've got 3 videos out. The first was full of surprises. Then it was Blood In, Blood Out. And then we have Destroyers of the Night, and we're crushing with Destroyers. It's like 140,000 people right now. It's been out a week or so. It seems to be taken on, and the media has been fantastic. And I thank all of you also. Thank you very much.
I wanted to thank you for delivering such an amazing album.
Thank you.
Just gets better and better. And
crank it, bro.
We all need that escape right now, I think, too, as well. As far as going to concerts, getting into
I just got off the phone with Ron Keel, actually. And he was talking about doing a Steeler 40-year anniversary tour. I know Mitch Perry's playing guitar for him right now. And Ron said, what do you think about Iron Allies and Steeler going out together? And I said, Ron, let's do it. Him and I have been friends since, 1980. I remember when Yngwie was playing in his band, and we go see him at the Whiskey or Gazzarri's. So we're kind of cooking on that for the States right now. Where are you located, Robert?
I'm located in Ohio.
Ah, cool. Rockin' Mecca of the United States. You got Cleveland, you got Akron, you got Dayton, Cincinnati, man. That's a rockin' state, man.
Absolutely. I was talking to someone the other day. Alan Freed coined the phrase rock and roll in Ohio on a radio station.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. And they had the Blues had a baby boy, and they called it rock and roll.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, I look forward to seeing you here.
I look
When-
forward to seeing you too, bro.
And you have a great rest of your afternoon, my friend. I'm working on finding my afternoon.
Well, that'll work, and I hope to have many more conversations with you. And let us know when this is out. We'll pump it all over our media pages. And again, I thank all of you.
I thank you, my friend, and you have a great rest of your day.
You too, brother. Ciao, Robert.
Cheers.
Cheers.